In this short video, I will walk you through the weights table in the Truck Science app. Understanding the weights table is fundamental to designing optimal trucks which maximize payload capacity. The weights table is found below the drawing. As changes are made to your configuration, the weights table is automatically updated on the fly. The rows in the weights table vary depending on the view selected on the right hand side. For the purpose of this video, we will use the default summary view. The information in the table is laid out in columns, with one column for total vehicle and two or more columns pertaining to individual axles or axle group. The rows contain information about permissible or allowed weights, actual component weights, and other derived weights which we'll get into in a moment. Let's start with the permissible row. The permissible row shows the maximum allowed total weight of the vehicle, including payload, as well as maximum allowed on each axle or axle group. The permissible weights are derived from the lesser of the OEM ratings for the vehicle and the legislative limits. Click into any of these values in this row to see a detailed breakdown of the OEM ratings and legislative limits. You may also override these values here. The gross axle weight ratings, front and rear, and gross vehicle weight rating indicate the maximum allowable weight of the vehicle, including payload, as specified by the vehicle manufacturer. The legislative limits are automatically populated based on the regulations applied in your settings. These may be overridden in the same way. Now let's look at the weights of the chassis itself, the body, and any additional equipment. Note the distribution of total weight over each axle. The chassis weight is normally populated by the Truck Science team based on a spec sheet from the chassis OEM. If the weight of the model that you are working on differs from the standard spec sheet, or if the weights have not been provided by the OEM, you may override the defaults by clicking the hyperlink text and entering the values from the vehicle plate or the documentation supplied with the vehicle. The chassis weight may or may not include the weight of the fuel and crew. Any changes you make in the fuel and crew tabs will be automatically reflected in the weights table. The default weights table view is the weights overview. To switch to a more detailed breakdown of fuel and crew, hover over that icon and choose Fuel and Crew. Up next is the weight of the body. To change the row label, you must rename the body. To open the Body Details dialog, click on the body weight either in the weights table or in the drawing, or use the body icon on the left-hand side. Simply edit the name of the body here. Note the name change in the weights table. The distribution of weight over the axles is automatically calculated by the program based on the distance of the body's center of gravity from each axle. Any additional equipment is also included here. The weights of the chassis, fuel, crew, body and equipment are added to calculate the total unladen weight of the vehicle. Total unladen weight is everything before payload. The payload is automatically defaulted to the maximum achievable by this configuration. It would be natural to expect that the payload capacity of this vehicle will be calculated by subtracting the total unladen weight from the total permissible. However, the permissible weight for each axle or axle group must also be considered. In this case, it is the permissible weight of the rear axle which is the limiting factor, as indicated by its utilization score of 100%. To override the default payload, click the total payload highlighted in blue and enter in the new payload weight. Because the payload exceeds the maximum achievable, the legal or OEM limits have been exceeded, and this is indicated by a red highlighting. A checkbox indicates that a default value has been overridden. The payload will be locked to this new value until the checkbox is unchecked. The gross weights are calculated by adding the total unladen weight and payload. Where the default payload has not been overridden, at least one of these values in the row will equal its corresponding value in the permissible row, indicating the permissible limit which has been reached. In this case, it is the rear axle group. The final two rows indicate how the gross or actual weights compare with permissible or allowed weights. Unused capacity is permissible weight less gross weight. Utilization is gross weight expressed as a percentage of the permissible weight. In general, low positive numbers in the unused capacity row and equal to or just under 100% in the utilization row are good indicators of an efficient design. Understanding the weights table is fundamental to designing optimal trucks which maximize payload capacity. If you have any further questions about the weights table in the Truck Science app, please reach out via our in-app chat. Thank you for watching.